Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for Tuesday, February 7th, 2023. Our scheduled AM show with Julian Edlow of DraftKings had to be pushed till tomorrow at 10:20 a.m. Technology won. Little IT problem, and we couldn't get it fixed, so we're now cruising into the afternoon, and I jumped in my spaceship, and I am back where I belong in L.A. with good friend and colleague Ron in the, as I said backstage, pains me to say our last show of the season as we are down to the finale, Kansas City and Philadelphia in Super Bowl in Arizona, 6:30 kickoff time, we hope. After a national anthem that will probably be, a minute and 23 seconds. I don't even know what the under-over is yet on that one, but we'll get to that. So without further ado, let's bring him in, the one and only Mr. Ron.
Good morning, Jeff. And, when I look at that background behind you of the odds screen and so on, I start salivating. I say, okay, what's up there? What looks juicy? Here we go. I'm in my element. So love those backdrops.
Yeah, this one at the Westgate, which I know when you do go to Vegas, we tend to tiptoe over there to say hi to Mr. Murray and the crew there. I think it was this past Thursday, they unveil usually around 400 props with a line waiting around. And I think you can go to the window and place 2 or 3 of them and then get back in line and do it again. Interesting. I woke up this morning, I pull up my spreadsheet, and our good friends at South Point, Mr. Chris Andrews and Mr. Jimmy Vaccaro, have moved their number to 2 now, and 51 still. The 51 is the common under-over right now on the Vegas Strip, but they are the only ones right now on the Vegas Strip posting a 2. Everyone else is 1.5.
Yeah, unless something happens and a line gets to 3, we know that Circa opened it the other way around, Kansas City 2.5, and then it flipped almost immediately. You're usually dealing with dead numbers. There's not really any dead numbers anymore with the metrics and the analytics saying you go for 2, you don't go for 2, you go 4th and 5, a missed extra point from the 33-yard line. There are a lot of different variables. So the numbers 1 and 2 can come into play. But in general, the price is pretty accurate. If you just go by power ratings alone, I would price this Philadelphia -1. So it's right in the ballpark.
This is a big if you were if that number was there for you, I'm playing devil's advocate here. And as soon as the Circa opened Kansas City at 2.5, you could have grabbed Philly at plus 125, 130, whatever that number was. And now you could flip it and go to South Point right now and probably get Kansas City plus 115, 118. And you're a guaranteed winner.
Yeah, I like that. And really, that's the way to approach a game like this is 2.5. If it's not going to be 3, should you play the money line? And a lot of people, especially the recreational players, the people who only bet on the Super Bowl, they just want to pick who's going to win the game. They don't want to deal with point spreads. So you're going to have that kind of thing where you're taking the money line one way or another, whether you like the favorite. You're not going to lay 2.5. You just want them to win the game. So dealing with the money line, certainly at Kansas City -2.5, if I'm pricing it at Philadelphia -1, the money line represented a tremendous amount of value at that time. I didn't have access to Circa. 30 minutes later, that number was long gone. So it's really just in the rearview mirror, but I get what you're saying. That would have been the way to go.
You talked about analytics. You talked about 4th and 5s. You talked about missed extra points. You talked about, I mean, head scratches going for two when it makes zero sense. And I think back to the Super Bowl squares when you're staring at fives, when you're staring at, nines and they're dead numbers unless you get 3 field goals. Every number is in play. But my question to you, and I'll play devil's advocate here. Is there a way in your mind that actually says Philly wins the game but doesn't cover a number of 1.5, saying it lands on that square peg of 1?
Well, there's always a chance of that because Philadelphia is the team that takes more risks than other teams. A lot of people have been writing about how Philadelphia is not going to have the longest field goal, for example, because Kansas City is more likely to try a field goal of 50 yards. Philadelphia on 4th and 5, if you based on 2022 history, is more likely to go for it on 4th and 5. So in those particular cases, if you want to extrapolate it to the end of the game, does Philadelphia, with the game on the line, go for 2 to try to win it? I don't think Kansas City would, but it might creep into Philadelphia's mind to not play the game in overtime and give Pat Mahomes one more crack at things in overtime. They may say, let's end it on our terms from the 2-yard line, and then the number 1 comes into play.
Before we break down the game, I read a couple of your articles that you sent me today before we got on air. A big loss. We've been waiting for him to come back for Kansas City was McCole Hardman, placed on IR. They added CEH, which, back in the time when they drafted him, everyone was very happy, showed flashes, just never got the wheels running. They draft Pacheco this year. They've had an emergence of McKinnon. They even have Ronald Jones on the roster. My question to you, just hypothetically, is could you see any way, shape, or form that CEH would actually have any kind of value or have any kind of say in this game moving forward on Sunday?
Well, I guess I would pay very, very close attention to the beat writers in this case, the people who cover the team on, and not necessarily today, Tuesday. I'd wait till Thursday, Friday. They're not going to do anything but walkthroughs probably on Friday, but the beat writers that can get as close to the team as with the intel as possible to find out if there's any kind of script that he's involved. Chances of there being a prop on him are slim. There's not even a prop on Ronald Jones right now. So you're only getting right now McKinnon, and of course you're getting Pacheco. So I don't think you can necessarily earn money on that. Conversely, if you think that they are going to be part of the game plan, then it takes away carries and touches from McKinnon and they're starting rookie running back from Rutgers, Pacheco. And so you could fade those particular people if you got that kind of info. So I think it's something that you really want to scramble and get as much information from the beat writers on this one.
And you broke it down so perfectly, because if someone's taken away playing time, touches, pass attempts from another one of the star receivers, we talk about numbers. And people just, when they run to the prop market, they just look at the stars, and 90% of them are all betting the overs because, well, the casino already knows you're going to be rooting. You're not going to root against them. The sharper guys will root against them and take the value in the numbers because these numbers are inflated towards, the over number versus what the actual true number really should be. So when Ron sits down and he wants to dabble in a little pizza and beer funny, Super Bowl Sunday, how do you extract the actual prop market with your data?
Well, Super Bowl props are different than any other creature because it's heavily public driven. It's not the sharps going and hitting numbers that are soft early, because in this market, it's going to be driven by what the public wants to do. And like you said, the public is most likely going to be involved on the overs because they want to root for people. So whatever the book set, a lot of those numbers are going to go up unless there's injuries involved and something like that. So when I'm looking at a Super Bowl, I'm looking more to create free money for me, free value. If I think Dallas Goedert of Philadelphia, his number, you compare shops. So 4.5 receptions was out there minus 105. Some shops were minus 130 to start, minus 125. The only way that could go, according to how I set my own numbers, are up. That's the only way it's going to go. It's not going to go to 4, in my opinion. So what I did is I took as much 4.5 at minus 105, not necessarily because I thought he was going to catch 18 balls or something like that. I actually priced him at about the same number. If I look at my sheet, I think I priced him at about 4.5 at a minus 130, minus 135. It's just down the road, I expected to get plus money on him. I think we're going to see some 5s. We've seen in some markets 5.5 heavily juiced. So I can come off that bet. I can turn it into pizza money. I could do whatever I want with it because I'm just trying to anticipate where the market is going.
Sounds like us trying to play the market game. We as I've said a few times to you, everyone new to our show today and watching, for us, we were holding 2 golden tickets with the Bengals and the Niners at 13 and 14 to 1 from November. But we needed to get in before the tournament started, and we had no Kansas City and we had no Eagles. So try it not to take the favorites at the plus 170s, tried to get creative. So we're holding a Jalen Hurts at plus 650 in the MVP and a Patrick Mahomes at plus 400 in the MVP. Now, with that said, if Kansas City wins the Super Bowl, I kind of equate it to Tom Brady. There is no way in holy hell Tom Brady doesn't win a Super Bowl when he was a Patriot. It was given. It was like hand in hand almost, especially as his career went on. And I feel the same with Patrick Mahomes. Now, if Philly wins, Jalen Hurts, again, is not guaranteed that MVP. Never mind, those prices are gone, Ron.
Well, we've seen in weird things in Super Bowls. We've seen cornerbacks intercept 3 passes and become an MVP. Balls were thrown right to, I think it was the Raiders DB at one time. And they become the Super Bowl guy. Timmy Smith runs for 204 yards for the Washington then Redskins. You can see somebody a diamond out of the rough. But obviously the go-to guy is usually the quarterback. If he throws for 300 yards and 2+ TDs, that's the natural way that something will go. But you never know. What if it's one of those Super Bowls where somebody kicks 6 field goals for some reason? Kansas City is an interesting study, for example, this year. Because with Tyreek Hill, they threw the ball downfield on splash plays a lot more than they did this year. There was one source that said they threw the ball downfield, significantly downfield, just once all year. I'm not sure about that, but let's suffice to say that there was a large gap between how often they stretched the field last year versus this year. Yet they went further. They're in the Super Bowl, so they adapted. If that's the case in this particular game, they're going to need more than Pat Mahomes. What if Travis Kelce catches 3 touchdown passes? You never know about MVPs.
Trying to figure this game out, as you said, it's a coin toss. I kind of equate the Super Bowl to New Year's Eve in regards to its amateur hour. It's just like, I know it's the biggest football game of the year. I get all that. But even with your breakdown, it's an absolute coin flip. But everyone's crawling out of the woodwork. As you like to say, the year's done. It's complete. I'm going to pick my heels up, take a few swings here and there, but enjoy the game. But as we're trying to formulate in our heads how this game might go, so I'm thinking outside the box. You look at the Eagles' path to get here: 2 blowout wins, 38-7 against the Giants, and then a quarterback-less 49ers team. They were able to run. They almost were just. Their O-line is so good with Hurts able to run, and then Sanders, Scott, Gainwell, just play keep away. If I was to say to you, Kansas City gets out early, they jump out to a 10-0, 13-3 lead, where now the Eagles, for the first time in the playoffs, are playing from behind, does their offensive strategy change where they would rely more on Jalen to throw? So maybe his pass attempts are down. Maybe the running game is less effective or less attempts versus if the opposite was to play out, because we know Patrick Mahomes is going to be chucking the ball. It doesn't matter what the score is.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept if Kansas City gets out by 10 points or more. I equate it to my study of Nick Sirianni, the Philadelphia head coach. And I'm not sure I know my overall opinion as to how good of a coach he is. I know that the Nick Sirianni of the first 8 games of his coaching tenure last year, or let's say the first 6 games before their full bye week, he had no clue what he was doing. They were passing 40 times a game. They were running 20 something. They were just out of rhythm, out of scheme, and so on. But he made an adjustment midway through 2021. And I said this on numerous shows this past spring and summer, that his game plan adjustments, his understanding of the team, when a new coach finally got a chance to sit back and say what's working and what's not, do an autopsy in season of what's going on, they started running the ball at a prolific rate, admittingly against lesser competition along the way, but they won and they started running the ball 40 times a game. All this to say is they now know who they are, and I don't think that they would necessarily get out of rhythm. They trust Jalen Hurts. All the narrative about Jalen Hurts is that he's a tremendous student of the game. He's been in many a big game before in college with 2 universities. And the spotlight is not too big for him. In fact, it's not too big for him. It might be bigger for the coach than it is for him. I think he'd use his legs a little bit more. I think he'd have to. The question is, how did they get down by 10? Did they get down by 10 because the Kansas City pass rush was more than Philadelphia's offensive line has seen from other teams? Or did they get down by 10 some other way because Mahomes threw a beautiful touchdown pass, an off-platform throw, or something fluky happened, and they could still just run their offense? But I think in general, the answer to your question is they would try to continue to do what they do best.
And I'm going to flip the stage to you in a second and explain the 2 articles that you wrote about. You put a couple props out there and some of the thoughts that you have that could happen on Sunday. I just had a train of thought here. Jalen Hurts last year takes the snap, looks at his first read, not open, puts the ball down and runs. This year, they bring in A.J. Brown, the emergence of Devontae Smith, a healthy Godart, the strong running game. He is now looking at read 1, read 2, read 3, comfortable in the pocket. Nothing's open, then we'll put the ball down and then run. You talked about the Kansas City pass rush. If all of a sudden, as you said, they start to put pressure on him, Jalen starts to feel uncomfortable, maybe forces a couple passes, maybe it is a pick that got them the 10-point lead. Any fear at all that we could see Jalen, who's been amazing this year, MVP, gonna win, should have won the MVP this year, I think, because he got hurt. Patrick Mahomes is, and that's kind of a chip on the shoulder saying, all right, Patrick, we'll give you the regular season MVP. I'll take the Super Bowl MVP. That's a little bigger. Any fear with a little injury that no one talked about, missed throws against San Fran, 2 weeks now, that we could see a different Jalen Hurts here? Or are you very comfortable with the breakdown that Jalen and Patrick, I'm okay with that if I'm siding with the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, Jalen is not Pat Mahomes, and he's only done this. This is his 2nd full year. Let's go back to Kenny Stabler. How about that name? I would have no fears with Kenny Stabler because he calls his own plays. Jalen Hurts doesn't call his own plays. Almost no quarterback in football calls their own plays anymore. It's all analytic this, your quarterback coach, you're this and that. If you're a top-tier quarterback, you have the chance to have 2 plays in the huddle and you run whatever you want to run or you call an audible. But Jalen Hurts is most likely going to call the plays that the Philadelphia coaches ask him to call on the sideline. So if the Philadelphia coaches do not panic, then I'm okay with Jalen Hurts. If they panic and put him in uncomfortable situations, then we have a problem.
You sent me 2 articles. You broke down Kansas City on offense versus Philadelphia. You broke down Philadelphia on offense versus Kansas City on defense. You had a handful of props that you're eyeing. Uh, I'm going to give you the stage to say, Ron, you have the crystal ball. You have Biff's almanac. Break down both how you see this. Not that you're giving out a selection, but break down those 2 articles, those because they were both great and spot on.
Okay. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll see where they are. They're at a gentleman that is very good in these circles as well, Kyle Hunter. He has a page where he's allowed me to post articles, college and NFL, all season long. I put out quarterly reports. I put out various articles here and there, strategy. It's not necessarily pick related, because you can take a look at it and say, no, I disagree, Ron, with your point here. I think this is going to happen. I think the articles will lend itself well to somebody reading them and saying, now I know what I want to do on the game. It's not necessarily follow Ron on what they want to do on the game. But if it plays out the way I think it'll play out, I think Jalen Hurts will run the ball a large number of times by design, because Kansas City is not a great team defending the run. So Jalen Hurts is a quarterback that should have some success running the ball. Kansas City hasn't faced a lot of running quarterbacks. My take is that he would run the ball 11 or more times. The number came out 9.5. It's pretty much 10.5 now, but gives you a little bit of wiggle room. But I expect Jalen Hurts to run the ball a significant number of times. I would like to see Philadelphia alter their game plan and do some misdirection against Kansas City. Jeff, one of the things I wrote in the article was that Kansas City's speed, Frank Clark and the other gentleman that provides all the speed, might be something that is a little bit unfamiliar with for Philadelphia. Kansas City drafts offensively and defensively for speed. They're going to see a lot more speed on the defensive side of the ball than maybe Philadelphia teams are used to. The way you combat speed is to go ahead and run screens or run misdirection or do some other things to it. Philadelphia does not make a habit of throwing to their running backs. But to be honest, I would like to see them do that if I were a Philadelphia backer in this game. There's no question Sanders has a quick enough first step to do that. Gainwell can be trusted with his yards per carry and yards per reception. Boston Scott is actually a pretty decent option on third down if he gets into the game a little sooner than he has been getting into the game. So that would be my way of combating Kansas City's speed on the flanks and on the edges. The other thing I will point out from Philadelphia's standpoint is that even though it was mostly unsuccessful, I liked Philadelphia's plan to go deep against San Francisco's pass defense. The San Francisco's pass defense is a little weaker, in my opinion, in the secondary than what Kansas City's is. But at the same time, Kansas City has to devote more arsenal. They have to devote more bodies to the run attack, because Kansas City is not even close to what San Francisco presents in terms of stopping the run. So if they're going to commit more bodies to the run, the pass will be open. I would like to see Philadelphia continue to stretch the field and try to hit 2 or 3 deep balls. And even if it doesn't work, it helps the run game.
I look at this game, and from my point of view, ECSI's point of view, we talk about trusting and respecting the opening number. That is the carrot. That is the story Vegas has presented us, and it's our job now to figure out the happy ending, which means cashing the ticket. As we talked about 2 Sundays ago, at probably 9:15, 9:18, Circa comes out with 2.5. Kansas City is favored. It's flipped all the way to, it got as high as Philly -2. Now it's 1.5 and now 2. We talk, you and I and all the other sharp people in these lanes, the good numbers are gone. Some people say, if I can't get Philadelphia at +2 or 2.5 when it opened, why am I taking it 1.5, or why am I taking it at 2? To the novice player, the guy that just wants to have some fun, can you explain to them in a nutshell? It's one game. What you and I are talking about when it comes to those actual opening numbers versus the closing value?
Well, if you're a recreational player, or if you don't do this seriously and you just want to have fun with the game, that's where that money line comes into play. For them, what's the difference between 1 point and 2 point or whatever? In the course of a long season, because a one game sample size means nothing, anything can happen. If you're going to not take a play when it was +2 or +2.5 and take it when it's -1, it's probably the difference of, for every 100 bets that you make, 4 or 5 games that have flipped out of your favor. So if your record would have been 55 and 45, 55% on the year, and your return on investment is X number percent based on your bankroll and so on, and you flip that and you get the worst of the number by 3 points, even though they're short numbers, you're not crossing a 3 and a 7, you're still probably going to take a 55-45 and turn it into a 51-49. And if you're paying 110, that means you're losing money at 51 and 49. You have to hit 52.38% in order to break even. So for the novice bettor, they just have to understand that, play with the pizza money, do whatever you want that way. But as a long-term strategy, you never want to give up that many points of value, because it's going to turn, even if it just turns, in my example to you, 3 bets or 4 bets out of 100, that's a huge difference in the bankroll.
Russell Saylor asks a great question, because going back to 2 Sundays ago, the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL was the San Francisco 49ers. They had a record of 15-0, meaning the opponents that played them the following week, they didn't win. They're physical, they're rough, they're tough, they got speed to kill. Russ asked a good question. Is San Francisco's defense a fast defense? And if so, what separates them between them and Kansas City?
Oh, hi, Russell. And I would say, first of all, they're built differently in my eyes. Nick Bolton, for example, drafted a couple years ago, ran an incredibly fast combine time. He's built on speed. He's not built the same way that Fred Warner is built, or some of those other guys, where if Fred Warner hits you, it's over. Nick Bolton needs to have that running speed to hit you. He's going to get to the edges faster than Fred Warner. Fred Warner makes his money on anticipation, and he makes his money because he is absolutely in the right place at the right time, a really good student of the game. Nick Bolton is more a speed-based guy. I would say Kansas City is built more for speed, and San Francisco, like you said, is built more for power. They stuff you at the line of scrimmage. They force you to pass the ball because they don't give an inch in the run game, San Francisco. Kansas City's worry in this game is that they can be run on by a power run attack. In fact, Hilaire, if he was favored by the organization, he's so out of favor right now, would probably be a good complement to try to handle the speed by running straight ahead against them and allowing Mahomes to vary the game plan and the strategy. But no, I'm not saying San Francisco's not fast. They have a lot of great athletes. Certainly Boza is more than quick enough, and he can match up with anybody. But I think Kansas City takes it to the next level.
You talked about Jalen Hurts, rushing attempts or run attempts at over 9.5. You said 10.5 is the number right now. You have that at 11. You talked about earlier in the show, Goddard, maybe receptions over 4.5. You've seen it as high as 5.5. Is there any other props out there that you might be able to lean towards or help out the people watching and listening today?
First of all, there's still time. You've missed the boat on some of them, because now that everybody's a little sharper and props are more mainstream, it hurts for somebody like me to be in California and have to watch the numbers play out a little bit before I get access to them. But that being aside, Gainwell is somebody I'm very interested in for Philadelphia. And you can do some head-to-head props, for example. the question is, who has the better run defense? In general, Philadelphia does, only because teams don't like to try to run on Philadelphia for whatever reason. And we also know Kansas City averages about 22 to 24 run attempts per game, whereas Philadelphia will run the ball 30 to 32 or 33 run attempts, including Hurts. So based on that, Gainwell versus McKinnon is something that I recommended, because I think Gainwell will get more yards per carry than McKinnon. McKinnon would be used in obvious draw situations, which might inflate his yards. But I think because Sanders, even though he's the feature back, he tends not to be overused, that Gainwell will get enough carries. And so I like Gainwell head-to-head over McKinnon. In fact, McKinnon's usage has been kind of weird after mid-season when he caught the ball 5, 6, 7 times, even 8 times in a game. I think in his first playoff game this year, he didn't even catch the ball. And then last week, I think he caught 2 or 3 passes. So it'd be interesting to see if they change that. I have a feeling that McKinnon will be more involved in the pass game. But if you're just going run versus run, I kind of like Gainwell in that particular instance. And there's, like I have something like 40 props going right now, and I'll probably end up with 60, 65. I'm just picking off things left and right. I have a spreadsheet as to where I'm going. One thing I'd like to say here is Kansas City, we still don't know what their rotation will be. I mentioned in the article that unfortunately Hardman's not going. He was somebody that would have tipped the scales for me. I think I would have gone on and said, yeah, I could take Kansas City under 3 points, because I just had that feeling that Hardman, his best games are going to be a handful for opposing defenses to go, but he's out. So we're going to get Smith-Schuster. We're going to get Scantling. We're already seeing widely different lines from books that are putting up their numbers, so you can get some middle action there. But I'm more interested in an off-the-wall guy, Noah Gray. And I'll tell you why, and I'll tell your listeners why. Philadelphia had 78 sacks on the year, if you count the playoffs. Kansas City is going to need some extra personnel to do some pass blocking at some time. Noah Gray will be in the game to pass block, but when things break down, Noah Gray will also be a target in the pass game. And if Smith-Schuster goes, but he's not 100%, if Tony goes, but he's not 100%, and Justin Watson's not 100%, they're going to rely on Scantling and obviously Kelsey. And Noah Gray might become a little bit more of a factor in the run game, in the pass game. McKinnon as well in the pass game. Noah Gray's number is just 1.5, and it's just 12.5 yards. In fact, it was even 10.5 yards at one point. He would be a guy I would look at.
As we slowly wrap this up here, I'm thinking out loud here, and I'm just thinking to my head, this is Patrick Mahomes has been to 5 straight NFC championships. Is that correct?
Wow, that is correct. That's amazing too.
His 3rd Super Bowl. He won his 1st Super Bowl. His 2nd Super Bowl, no left tackle, no right tackle, had a turf toe or toe injury. You could tell right away. The Chiefs were in trouble. Their O-line could not withstand the Bucs line coming at him, and that game got ugly early. What do you think the NFL here, and this is just a hypothetical, do you think, with Tom Brady retiring officially, supposedly, and you could hear it in his voice, you can feel the sincerity in this one. Do you think a Patrick Mahomes now with 2 Super Bowls and now 2-1 in Super Bowl, not that he'll ever catch Tom with 6, 7 rings and 10 appearances, but do you think the NFL would really like to maybe see the official change in the guard with Pat with 2? Or is it good for the NFL and the Eagles and the story to have Jalen Hurts and the Eagles hold up that Super Bowl trophy?
If they had their way, they'd probably say 60-40 Kansas City. But the storyline moving forward, whether Kansas City wins or loses, is more a package deal. It's not just Mahomes. The changing of the guard is really Mahomes, with Burrow, with perhaps Josh Allen, with Justin Herbert for sure, with maybe one or two others that are coming up. Most of these guys are in the AFC, as it turns out. But still, I think it's a package deal. We've finally seen the change from a completely immobile pocket quarterback. Drew Brees is gone. Tom Brady is gone. Peyton Manning is gone, and so on. Aaron Rodgers is still there for a couple more years. But now we're going to go with these guys who can use their legs if they have to, like Burrow and Mahomes, or they use their legs as weapons, such as a guy like Josh Allen. I think we are really seeing right now the storyline for 2023 is we have a new breed of quarterback, and this is exciting for the NFL.
As we always do here, and for the last time this season, I am handing you the stage for your closing thoughts. Anything and everything that you would like to say, the stage is yours, sir.
First of all, Jeff, again, thank you for having me on. Thank you for everybody who watched and listened. It's been a pleasure to share my thoughts. I used to hold them in secret, like I've said, I used to say, no, don't let this get out. Not that. But I'm in my career where I'm willing to share the process. It's all about the process. And the Super Bowl ends and the process starts again. Part of my exit report interviews, which, Jeff, you were so kind to join me for New England. I'm about 40% of the way through the conferences right now. Part of that is therapeutic. I go back and I look at how I handicap these teams and what did I miss? What did I get right? What's my path? What's my initial thoughts about their new coordinators, their new head coaches, and so on? I get ready for the draft, but I do this very methodically. I might end up doing it in Iceland when I visit Iceland. We're going to Maui. I mean, we're going to circle the globe, but I don't have to watch the football or crunch the numbers or look at the prop numbers anymore. I could do it on my own terms. So the work won't stop, but it'll be at my own pace, on my own free will, and my own time. And I love the fact that there's some downtime right now for us that really concentrate on football only. But I'm always learning, and that's what I say. Trust the process. You're always learning. It doesn't matter if you've done this 30 years, 40 years, or 3 years. Networking is always great.
Music to our ears when we hear trust the process. That's something that we've preached now for 8+ years here at East Coast Sports Investors. It's been an amazing ride and journey this year with you on Tuesdays at 3:30. It enables me to kind of see through your eyes, to kind of the process. That's what I'm all about. That's what East Coast Sports is all about, is the process. And to see your books and books and books of knowledge now, as you said, you're sharing it to us. And I'll just say this out loud, Ron. We can't thank you enough. And the people out there can't thank you enough. There are so many people at the end of these shows that reach out and say, oh my God, Ron, what a pleasure to listen to. And you're helping thousands upon thousands of people. You're helping them sharpen up their craft as well, Ron.
Well, thank you. And, writing like those articles, they really help bring clarity to me. If you write, if you verbalize your thoughts, you get an idea. I mean, if you're doubting yourself, then maybe that's not the right play or the right method that you're using. I mean, just go ahead and develop a routine, stick to it, but be willing to adjust your metrics if something's not working. I mean, always fine tune it.
If you're not following, shame on you. Go to Twitter at Ron A Sports. He's going to sit back and enjoy the Super Bowl, take a few trips, but as he says, the process never stops. He will start to, as soon as the closing bell ends on Sunday, it's a new season, and we're hoping as the season progresses, whether it's combine, whether it's drafts, whether it's OTAs, to have you back, as we talked about behind the stage. But again, enjoy the Super Bowl, enjoy those trips, share some pictures on social media. We want to see them all. And thank you again, Ron.
Thank you.
From Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Investment, from Ron A Sports, we wish everyone a blessed day. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Any questions, comments, concerns, reach out to us on Twitter. ask away. We do answer back. To anyone watching and listening, looking for the closing bell tonight, myself and Roddy will be back in approximately 20, 25 minutes. So stay tuned. We will see you soon.